Another day is here, and you're ready for it. What to wear? Check. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Check. Planning for what's next and how to save for it? That's where Bank of America can help. For your financial to-dos, Bank of America has experts ready to help get you closer to your goals. Get started at one of our local financial centers or 24/7 in our mobile banking app. Find a location near you at bankofamerica.com/talktous. What would you like the power to do? Mobile banking requires downloading the app and is only available for select devices. Message and data rates may apply. Bank of America N.A., member FDIC.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Five Below means hot stuff, cool prices, and the best kind of fun anywhere. The trends you see all over your feed can be yours for way less than the rest. Like can't keep in stock candy and snacks, brand name beauty, the latest tech, room decor, and lots more. Plus, get extreme value finds you just have to see to believe in our 5 Beyond shop. Yep, you could say we're kind of a big deal here. Shop over 1,600 stores nationwide and fivebelow.com.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Red, your lunchtime catch-up on all things Liverpool FC, and today we're doing things a little bit differently. It's not just me. I am joined by Anfield Index and many other places writer Ben Bocsak. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm very well. Some interesting things going on today, so it's been interesting sort of looking at X or Twitter. I still call it Twitter these days. So yeah, so it's been an interesting day so far.
It has been an interesting day so far, and to be fair, it's been an interesting summer so far from a Liverpool point of view, obviously with all the change at the club. And, you know, we've got a bunch of players at different international tournaments and trying to keep track of those and seeing how they're performing and trying to project what they might do next season. But for you, it's a little bit different because unlike me, your home nation was actually playing in the Euros, starring one of our best players, Dominic Szoboszlai, obviously playing for the Hungarian national team. So let's just start our chat there. A disappointing defeat to Switzerland, where I thought Hungary deserved a draw, but they probably didn't get started in the game early enough. They were 2-0 down before they really settled in. Then a defeat to Germany, which was pretty predictable because obviously Germany are one of the elite teams. But then they did beat Scotland, and by beating Scotland, they put themselves in a position to be one of the best third-place runners or third-place teams and qualify for the knockouts that way. And you had to wait all the way until the last day to find out that Georgia had pipped you. So let's start with Hungary first. What did you think of their performances? And then what did you think of Dominic in particular? Because you've obviously been following Dominic's career from when he was very young. You're the best around for the insight on Dom. What did you make of his performances, but the national team on the whole?
I think in the end, it was the first 45 minutes against Switzerland that cost Hungary the whole tournament as a whole. They were dreadful in that first 45 minutes, and they did actually quite well in all the rest of the other 45 minutes in the tournament. Obviously, they came back against Switzerland. It was a draw in the second 45 minutes, which would have been enough. 4 points would have taken Hungary through. But conceding two in the first half was what cost them. Against Germany, there isn't really any expectations, but I thought the first Germany goal was a little bit dubious in terms of, I think it could have potentially been called as a foul on Orban in the lead up to the play. And then Hungary created quite a few chances that they should have put away, and that was actually closer than I think 2-0. Against Scotland, I think Hungary got away with it a little bit. This should have been a penalty, I think, before Hungary's winner. I can't remember the guy who was tripped up by Orban, but I thought that was a penalty, and Hungary definitely got away with that. But I think ultimately it's a team that's built on Dominic Szoboszlai, and Dominic Szoboszlai was not 100% fit for this one. I think if it wasn't such an important tournament, if it wasn't such an important thing for him to represent his nation, he probably wouldn't have played these games. He's picked up a little knock against Israel in the lead up to the tournament. He actually hadn't trained at all since the Germany game until I think after the Scotland game. So in the lead up to the Scotland match, he hadn't actually done any training. He was just recuperating the whole time. I think that's sort of, you could see in his performance that he wasn't 100%. He wasn't as explosive as he can be. He wasn't making those runs. He wasn't sort of doing the things that he does best. I mean, he still recorded, I think, a top speed of 34.5 kilometers per hour at the tournament, which sort of ranked him in, I think, the top 20 players in the tournament so far. But if you're looking at sort of the distance covered and stuff like that, he was very low on those figures. And I think that comes to the fact that he just wasn't completely match fit for this tournament.
Yeah, that was my feeling on it as well. He seemed to be playing within himself quite a bit and didn't seem to have that same sort of explosiveness or that, like you say, that ability to cover large amounts of ground that we got so used to seeing for Liverpool last year. I think as well as that, there's some really good players in that Hungary team, but he is the standout. And teams were game planning to kind of stop him. Not just to stop him when he got the ball, but to stop the ball from getting to him. And that did affect him. And we saw him at times sort of throwing his arms up and gesticulating and being a little bit unhappy about the fact that the ball wasn't getting to him. I did think his set-piece delivery throughout the tournament was quite good, although I would question why he's taking free kicks back near the halfway line at times. Surely there's somebody else that can pull the ball, and you have him on the edge of the box there. So Hungary finished third. They wait, and it looks like they're going to qualify. Nobody expects Georgia to get a result against Portugal. What was the feeling like, though? Obviously one of a big and bitter disappointment, seeing Georgia go out, get that early goal, and then go on and beat the Portuguese the way they did. What was the mood among Hungarian fans? Was it anger? Was it disappointment? Was it kind of an acceptance of, okay, do you know what? Like you said, if we just performed against Switzerland the way we know we're capable of, we would have gone through, so we only really have ourselves to blame here.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to add as well, in regards to Szoboszlai, he was actually playing in a different role than he normally does, or he'd been playing in the qualifiers. So in the qualifiers, he was actually dropping a lot deeper and sort of helping Hungary progress the ball from, like, as in the number 6 position, and that a lot of the times, or even dropping back to being a fullback and stuff like that, which kind of changed for this tournament. He went a little bit higher up the pitch, and I think the frustration in terms of him throwing his hands in the air and stuff like that was because he wasn't playing in his more preferred role for Hungary anyway. But you need someone like Szoboszlai to be able to bring the ball back forward, because we don't quite have the sort of players who can do that. So I think that was a strange tactical choice. because I thought he'd been working really well, playing deeper, and when he can get in his stride and stuff like that, running in from deep, he can sort of get that momentum and beat a few players. And I think that's what all the Liverpool fans saw in his highlight reels when he was playing at international level, and he wasn't able to do that just because he was a lot of the times playing with his back to goal, and that's not really what you want with Dominic Szoboszlai. So that was another frustrating aspect, I think. But in terms of the Georgia result, to be honest, we had hopes for England. All we needed was England to beat Slovenia, and that was obviously the night before. And all my Hungarian friends were like, well, surely England's going to beat Slovenia, and they hadn't watched any England games at the tournament. They hadn't watched, I think, England recently at all. Unfortunately, I have, and I didn't have too high hopes for that result to go through. And when it didn't, I had, there was always a feeling in my mind that it was possible that not Georgia getting a result, but I think if the Czech Republic would have won as well, Hungary would have been out. Obviously, Turkey did the job there, but I thought it was always possible that maybe the Czech Republic could get a result. In the end, Georgia did, and I'm happy for them because I know a lot of Georgians, and I think it means a lot for them to have achieved what they have done, and they've got some fantastic players who I'm looking forward to seeing for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, they have two in particular in the attack. Obviously, everybody knows about Kvaratskhelia and what he's capable of, and we've all watched him for Napoli, especially not the season just gone, but the season before when he played against us in the Champions League and did things to Trent Alexander-Arnold that are illegal in many countries. But Mikitadze, his buddy up front, has been probably the revelation of the tournament so far. And I think a couple of the midfielders, Kokorashvili, I think has drawn an awful lot of plaudits. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see both Mikitadze and Kokorashvili get moves off the back of this. And I think the goalkeeper as well, Mamardashvili, he's one that a lot of people rated highly coming into the tournament. And I think his stock has gone up as well. So really good to see this for Georgian football because, I mean, prior to this, most people's knowledge of Georgian football was when Georgi Kinkladze played for Manchester City. And that was the height of it, having one of their players playing in the Premier League. At international level, they hadn't done a whole lot. At least with the Hungarians, obviously, you've got incredibly good history with that incredible golden team under Gustavo Sebes, with, Puskas and Koksix and all those great players of the past. But the primary reason actually that I wanted to have you on today is because you have written a book. And it is a book that ties into both of these teams, Hungary and Georgia and many others. It is called The Rise of the Underdogs, and it's out now with Pitch Publishing. So just give us a brief overview of the book, and then we'll dive into a few things.
Yeah, so, I mean, since I started my career, I've always been fascinated by underdogs. I really like inspiring stories, whether that be players making it against the odds or teams achieving something against the odds. So I decided to write a book about it, and I wanted it to be a sort of global book. So I decided to focus on stories from all over the world. There's stories in there from pretty much every continent on the planet. And they're all about underdogs, whether that be a player or a team who've achieved or reached heights that you would never imagine, and how they've achieved that and why they've been able to achieve that. And there's interviews in there with the people who've sort of been close to them and watched them do it.
So this is obviously an idea then that you'd had for a while. So just walk us through the process of pitching the book, then researching the book, or did you research it before you pitched it? And then what type of time frame are we looking at from when it starts to gather momentum up until release day?
So I did a lot of research prior. And then once I was happy with the amount of material that I did have, I then went to pitch it. I think I pitched it around February of 2023, so like a year and a half ago. And we set the publishing date for June, and in fact we were able to keep that publishing date, even though I think my ultimate submission was a little bit delayed because of Georgia, because we wanted at least to have the chapter conclude with knowing whether they qualified for the Euros or not. So we wanted that to be in there, and that was only decided in March, late March. So the submission in the end ended up being in April, and it was quite a fast turnaround after that to get the book out in early June.
So a couple of players feature very prominently, the 6 players on the cover. Luka Modric is the first player I'm looking at. He's the closest to me as I look at this cover. And obviously Croatia feature strongly in this and what they've done in World Cups. And obviously, you can go back to 96 where they sort of announced themselves to the world at the Euros following the breakup of that great Yugoslavian team of the 80s and early 90s. But the one that stands out for Liverpool fans will obviously be Mohamed Salah. So in your own researching of this book, were there any stories around Salah or around the Egyptian national team or football in Egypt that you were surprised by, or something that maybe you didn't know and caught you a little bit off guard?
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to one of the coaches who worked with him in his early career, which it was just sort of really interesting to get an insight into his attitude, even, as a teenager, what he was like. I think we all know the stories of him traveling so long to get to training because he grew up in a tiny village that was quite far away from Cairo, where he went to training sessions. But I guess what I wasn't too aware of was the political situation around Egypt when he was actually coming through, and how that helped to sort of impact him moving abroad quicker than perhaps it would have been possible to get that move to Basel, because football had actually been suspended because there were mass unrest in Egypt in the early 2010s when he was coming through, and that meant football was suspended. And the way he was kind of discovered was because his team wanted to play games and they were forced to go into Europe, and they actually played a friendly against Basel where Salah scored a hat-trick, and Basel after that decided, we want to sign this guy. He seems special. And
we are AudioStack.ai,
combining AI writing, the best synthetic voices,
with production and delivery.
Be it ads, podcasts, or VOs for video.
Just like this ad. How would you utilize AI audio? For free.
Go to audiostack.ai/contest.
Give us just a few details,
And you could replace this spot and be heard by millions.
See webpage for T's and C's. audiostack.ai/contest.
Heat pumps are going mainstream. With tax credits of up to $2,000, the Federal Inflation Reduction Act can make it more affordable than ever to upgrade your HVAC system and lower your energy bills. Now's the time to say goodbye to your old-fashioned fossil fuel burning system and switch to an all-electric, all-climate heat pump from Mitsubishi Electric. Learn more about Mitsubishi Electric products at patriotair.com.
Federal income tax credit available to U.S. homeowners only for qualifying heat pump models. Terms and conditions for tax credit are dependent on federal and state laws and regulations and are subject to change. Contact your tax advisor for further requirements and to confirm eligibility for tax credits.
Yeah, I mean, who knows if that friendly was ever arranged, he might not have even been spotted.
I mean, this is the thing that a lot of people don't sort of realize with players that don't come from countries where there are enormous academy systems like the UK, like France, Germany, where the chances of a great player being missed are minimal. But in in Africa, in Eastern Europe, in South America, in Asia, there may well have been incredibly gifted footballers that never got the opportunity because circumstances didn't arise, the political situation in their country, caused disruption in the normality of life. And, as I look at this picture, I see Alphonso Davies, Unahi of Morocco, Mitoma of Japan, obviously, and Kvicha. And they've all got such different stories. I mean, Mitoma's story is maybe one of the most unique you'll ever hear of a footballer. So can you give us any insight into him or anything around him that you learned while going through the research process?
I mean, I think I read his autobiography for this book. With the help of Google Translate, I was in Japan and I bought it. And I think he is actually quite embarrassed by people talking about his thesis. He says it was basically just he was forced to pick a thesis and he was too lazy to pick anything else than, what he knew best, which was dribbling. So he thought it would be an easy thing to do. It wasn't anything like super clever from his sort of perspective anyway. He just thought, well, this is what I know. This is what is going to take me the quickest. So, just being a typical university student, I think. So I think it's been a little bit sensationalized in the UK media in terms of the contents of that thesis and stuff like that. But for me, I think the thing that shocked me about the Japanese chapter is how new football is in Japan. It wasn't professional until the J League was established in 1993. I think since then it's grown rapidly to the extent where if you're looking at the 2002 World Cup, I think there was only a couple of Japanese players who were playing abroad. Now, looking at their 2022 squad, or just even in terms of the player pool that they can pick from, there's like loads and loads of players playing abroad. There's players who can't even get into the squad, who are playing at high levels in Europe. And I think that Japanese exports are just growing year after year. And I think it's really fascinating sort of to talk to people working at grassroots level and academy level in Japan, and the concentration and the focus they have on like technical development and nutrition and everything else. And I think there's those are the factors why there are so many Japanese players now playing in top levels in European football.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know if you know this, but I'm very, very old. So I remember when Gary Lineker shocked everybody by announcing he was moving to Japan in the early 90s to go and play for Grand Passage. And it was almost this sort of, wait, they play football in Japan kind of attitude. And now, like you say, you look at the Japanese squad, you've got players with Borussia Mönchengladbach, Bayern Munich, Arsenal, Sporting, Liverpool, Monaco, Fortuna Düsseldorf, Celtic, Real Sociedad, Feyenoord. They're far-flung, obviously Brighton as well. They're far-flung across Europe. There's a concentration of them maybe in Belgium and in Germany, but they're not just players. Like, you go back 10, 12 years and Inamoto was at Arsenal and he looked a talented player, but didn't seem to have what it took to make it in the Premier League. And Nakata was kind of their poster boy, but he was the one that it was seen, this guy could play anywhere. And now you look at players like Mitoma, like Kubo, and the top clubs are circling round these players. You've got Tomiyasu at Arsenal, proven himself to be a very, very solid defender in the Premier League. Ito's just joined Bayern Munich. Like, there's so many of these players now that are really showing themselves to be of a very high level from a country that, again, 30 plus years ago, we were asking, do they play football in that country? And it just shows the rapid growth and how quickly they've been able to invest in their grassroots level, invest in coaching. And also, there's like a good marrying of education and sport, where you don't see a Japanese player and sometimes you look at a player and you think, you're talented, but there's very little between your ears. And not to stereotype, but with the Japanese players, it seems like they're all very intelligent players. Like they're all thoughtful, they're all tactically switched on. They don't just rely on their talent. They have other things that they bring to the game as well, which isn't always the case for certain regions.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when I went to Japan, it's a very respectful culture, and I think that culture obviously seeps into education. Having grown up in the UK, I know that respectful sort of culture does not exist in the UK, especially when it comes to education. And obviously, if you don't have that culture, then you are going to be able to learn a lot less in school and in lessons when teachers are being constantly disrupted. I don't think that's necessarily the case in Japan. In there, you are still taught to respect your elders, and there's a massive respect when it comes to that kind of thing in academy coaching, and then going into like the first team environment and stuff like that. So I think obviously that helps in terms of maturing players and helping them become more intelligent. But yeah, I think there's no one way of being successful. And I think Georgia is another good example. Like the way they've, like a lot of their players, I think 16 in their current squad came from the same academy in Dinamo Tbilisi. And the story there is really interesting as well, and it features in the book. It all started when a coach from La Masia, who worked with Messi, Xavi, Iniesta and Fabregas, he decided he wanted to sort of go on a new adventure, and ended up at Dinamo Tbilisi, became the academy director there, introduced the sort of La Masia principles, playing good football, 4-3-3, possession-based, tiki-taka football. And under him, he was the first person who sort of discovered Kvaratskhelia. He spotted him, and at the time, I think some of the Georgian coaches were, I think he was only 10 years old, and they were not sure. They were like, oh, he's a little bit too skinny. We don't know if he's going to make it. But Andres Carrasco, that's the name of the coach, he believed in him, and he said, no, he's a talent we need to bring into the club. And Kvaratskhelia came through the youth system there, and he's not the only one. Mamadashvili, Chakratadze, who is now at Watford, and I don't think you mentioned him when we were talking about
it. No, I didn't actually.
I think he's been brilliant as well. And so many others in that Georgian squad who are of similar age and came through the academy. And all this started in sort of the early 2010s, so it's only been sort of 10 years of having this system in place, but already they're experiencing so many successes. And recently another player was transferred to Bayern Munich. There's been another who's gone to Basel. There's a couple of others who are coming through at Dinamo Tbilisi now who are really exciting as well. So I think this is just the beginning, really. There is exciting developments going on there, and I think Georgia is a good example that you don't necessarily need a lot of money in football, but if you've got the right people, if you've got the right environment, the right coaches, you can create success. And I think Croatia, who we mentioned earlier, is another example of that. They're a small country. There's not that much money. There's not that much infrastructure, but they had smart, clever people in place, and they were able to implement a system and the methodology that created them a lot of success. And that's why a lot of the Croatia team come from Dinamo Zagreb's academy, like Modric and etc. Because the guy who worked there, Romeo Jozak, he sort of worked with them initially, and he introduced the academy system there and made it really successful at Dinamo Zagreb. And then he moved into the Croatian national team setup, sort of established a youth system in Croatia. And since then, he's actually moved on to Saudi Arabia, where he's working to establish their youth system with Nasser Lacquet, who was behind the Morocco Mohammed IV Academy that developed a lot of the players who obviously wrote Morocco's footballing history at the last World Cup in Qatar. So the two of them working together in Saudi Arabia, there's a chapter on that in the book as well, is going to be very interesting. I think they set the goal, Romeo told me, of wanting to get to the semi-finals in the 2034 World Cup and achieve what Croatia achieved. So it's going to be very interesting to see if they can do that.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Dinamo Tbilisi, you mentioned Dinamo Zagreb. It only takes countries to have one academy that just really pushes the pace and develops players. Because we look at Ecuador, they're one of the rising forces now in world football. Obviously, we see what their national team now looks like with so many top-end players, and others like Pacho and Hincapié probably set for moves this summer. Hendrick, as we know, will join Chelsea. You've got Estupiñán, who's established himself as one of the best left-backs in the Premier League. Caicedo, obviously a top-class player. And it's one academy, really, in Independiente del Valle that has been at the forefront of that. And so many of their best players come through that academy. So, again, ties in with what happened in
and there is actually a chapter on Ecuador as well. I spoke to a lot of the coaches at Independiente del Valle, and I think what's really impressive about them is, they only have one academy, but they have like loads and loads of satellite academies all across Ecuador, and that means that they don't just have like a base in the capital city or wherever they're based locally. They have sort of hegemony in all over Ecuador. So if they spot a talent in, I don't know, the outskirts of the country, they've got a school, they've got a sort of like place like where what is it called, like dorms where players can sort of move into from a young age. And Caicedo was actually one of those. He was very young when he moved into their academy and had to sort of leave his family and be separated from his family. And I think that is the key behind their successes. They are just one academy, but they control so much of the scouting, so many networks all across the country, which means the best talents end up with them. And now they've also got a reputation as well. So all the young kids in Ecuador want to play for Independiente del Valle and want to sign for them because they know that means they can get out of poverty and move to Europe, which is everyone's dreams if you're a footballer in the country.
That's the thing, and like it means that less and less moving forward, there will be players that had the talent and just never got the opportunity. We're seeing it more and more in Africa with the likes of Right to Dream and other academies that aren't necessarily connected to a club, but start as an academy and develop into a club. Last thing before I let you go, is there one story that didn't make the final cut of the book that you kind of look at and think, I would have liked to have gotten that one in?
I actually haven't thought of that, but I guess Iceland is one. They didn't qualify for the Euros this time around, but I thought there's enough, their story's interesting enough to the fact that they qualified for the World Cup and did so well at the last Euros. I mean, not the last Euros, but the Euros even before that. I thought maybe they're worthy of a mention, and I would have liked to have gone to more sort of and spoken to more people from South America. It's just, I think there's a language barrier there, so it was difficult to find people. But it was definitely really fascinating to discover more about Independiente del Valle. But yeah, those are the two I think that I would have sort of liked to have explored more.
And is there another book in the offing? Do you have an idea for the next one, or is that something that you're just going to allow to breathe for a while and can take a bit of time before you jump into something else?
Yeah, well, right now I'm in discussions to get the book translated in Hungarian, because there's a little bit of interest, obviously being Hungarian and stuff, to get the book translated. So I'm just focusing on that. Hopefully the negotiations go well and that works out. So right now I'm just focused on that, and then if that works out, I'll have to do quite a lot of promotional stuff in Hungary. So I don't know if I have time. I've also just gone fully freelance in the last sort of few months, so trying to navigate around that as well, since writing the book has been a lot more difficult, but I am definitely enjoying being freelance more and having more control over actually writing about the stuff that matters to me and the stuff that I like doing. So if you want to sort of read more of my work, just be in touch on my Twitter, and I've got some stuff that I'm really passionate about that I do for Anfield Index, that usually 1 or 2 articles a week, analysing sort of Liverpool transfers or Liverpool players and interesting loan players and stuff like that, and some other stuff as well that I do from time and time again, like interviews with the coaches of potential transfer targets and stuff like that.
Well, we're very, very happy to have you on board at Anfield Index. I was very excited when Eddie told me the news that you'd agreed to work with us. Your work is invaluable. You're as good as there is. Your book is called Rise of the Underdogs, Football's New World Order. It's available now on Amazon, at WH Smith, Waterstones, wherever you get your books. I can guarantee, without having read it yet, I can guarantee this is going to be well worth your while. So folks, get out and buy it. Ben, thank you for your time today. I'll speak to you again soon.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index, and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
This is where projects come to life. Our showrooms are designed to inspire with the latest products from top brands, curated in an inviting, hands-on environment, and a team of industry experts to support your project. We'll be there to make sure everything goes as planned, from product selection to delivery coordination. At Ferguson Bath, Kitchen and Lighting Gallery, your project is our priority.
See the latest designs from your favorite brands, including Signature Hardware, at your local Ferguson showroom.